Okay guys, today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting decimals. Okay, now just as a reminder, if you need to stop the video at any point like that, you can write it in your journal, please do so, and then just resume the video as soon as you're finished. Okay, it is part of our expectations that you're writing what I'm writing in your notebook. So on the next page, you're writing adding and subtracting decimals as your title. And for adding and subtracting decimals, place value is extremely important. So the first rule rule number 1, is that you have to line up your decimals. If you want to keep your place value, lining up your decimals is going to help. So for example, let's say we have 1 4/10 plus 6 75/100. As you can hear, they are different place, they end in different place values. One ends in the tenths, the other one ends in the hundredths. However, I still lined up my decimal. And that's for an addition problem. For a subtraction problem, I can have a number like 15 and 1/10 minus 7 and 95/100. Once again, I made sure to line up my decimals. That helps me make sure that I'm in the same place value. If not, it's really easy to just put your numbers lined up and then have different place values. That will give you the wrong answer. So make sure that you know that place value matters. Okay, it's extremely important that you know that for adding and subtracting decimals, place value matters. So now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and go to rule number 2. Okay, rule number 2 is to drop down your decimal. Okay, so once again, we're going to use the same problems that we had. We have 1 4/10 plus 6 75/100. Okay, and it says drop down your decimal. So I lined it up because that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is drop it down. So I'm going to drop it down. Okay, and that's step number 2. The same thing goes with subtraction. I'm going to write 15 and 1/10 minus 7 and 95/100. Once again, step number 1, lined up my decimals. Step number 2, drop down your decimal. Done. Okay. This is a really common mistake. People forget to put their decimal, to bring their decimal down. So please, don't forget your decimal. Okay, it makes a really big difference in your answer. So don't forget your decimal. And then the last rule, rule number 3, is that you need to fill in your missing zeros. So rule number 3, okay, so this is going back to when we talked about place value and trailing zeros. Okay, so once again, we're going to take the same equations that we've been working with. 1 4/10 plus 6 and 75/100. I lined up my decimals. Now I have to bring my decimal down. Now I have to fill in my missing zeros. So as you can tell, there's numbers in the ones, there's numbers in the tenths. However, there's only one number in the hundredths. That means I am missing something right here. So I'm going to put my 0 right here. And according to the rule of trailing zeros, if it's after a decimal and at the very, very end, that 0 can always come and go as it wants, okay? You can add as many zeros as you need. Okay, so we're going to do the same with the second one. So we have 15 and 1/10 minus 7 and 95 hundredths. Okay, I lined up my decimals. I'm bringing my decimal down, and I'm looking at my place value. If I want, I can add a 0 here because we know 0.7 is the same as 7. But what really matters is the numbers after the decimal. I have numbers in my tenths, but I don't have numbers in my hundredths, or at least I don't have one number in my hundredth. So this area right here, I'm going to add a 0 at the end to make solving the problem easier. And then the last step is to solve okay. So now we can solve our problem. So we're going to start off with 1 and 40 hundredths plus 6 and 75 hundredths. Okay, I am adding 0 plus 5 gives me 5. 4 plus 7 gives me 11. Bring down my decimal. 6 plus 1 gives me 7, plus 1 gives me 8. Okay. For the subtraction problem, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we have 15 and 10 hundredths minus 7 and 95 hundredths. Okay. I cannot do 0 minus 5, so I have to regroup. This turns into a 0. This turns into a 10. 10 minus 5 gives me 5. 0 minus 9. I cannot do 0 minus 9, so I have to regroup. This turns into a 4. This turns into a 10. 10 minus 9 gives me 1. I have my decimals. I need to bring it down. Okay. Then I have 4 minus 7. Once again, I cannot do 4 minus 7, so I have to regroup. 14 minus 7. Well, 14 minus 7 gives me 7. So my answer is 7 and 15 hundredths. It is really, really important that whenever you solve these questions, you ask yourself this question, okay? Does my answer make sense? Okay, does your answer make sense? If you forget your decimal, you get 815. Well, $1.40 plus $6.75 is not going to give you $815. So you can think to yourself, okay, I probably forgot a step or I did something wrong. The same thing goes for this problem right here. And then, of course, as always, we always check our work. So in order to check our work, I am going to get my answer. And I'm going to subtract 1 and 40 hundredths from it because I was adding here. So now I'm doing the opposite operation to check my work. Remember, we are just checking our work. Okay, so I am subtracting. I'm doing the opposite operation. 5 minus 0 gives me 5. I cannot do 1 minus 4. So I'm going to regroup. 11 minus 4, that's going to give me 7. Bring down my decimal. 7 minus 1 is going to give me 6. This is the same answer that I got, or this is the same number that I got right here. So I know my answer of 8.15 was correct. I can check it off, okay? Once again, I'm going to check my answer right here. The opposite operation of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add my two smaller numbers. Five plus 5 gives me 10. 9 plus 1 gives me 10. Plus 1 gives me 11. Bring down my decimal. 7 plus 7 gives me 14. Plus 1 gives me 15. This product is the same as this number right here. Okay? And this is how you add and subtract decimals. If you need any additional help, please see the additional videos. Look back at your notes. And as always, you can always send me a chat message on Canvas, or whenever we have our scheduled Zoom, you can always ask your questions there. Thanks.